Hello, Canada, and welcome to another episode of Vamos, presented by Degree, a show that I can confidently say is the most comprehensive daily coverage of Canada at the Copa America. And we are so invested in this tournament that we have sent Christian Jack back on the road, joining us live from Orlando, Florida, where he has been a very busy man, speaking to as many members, players, and staff of this men's national team as possible. And you will hear plenty of those interviews throughout the course of the next 30 minutes. Also, the incomparable Gareth Wheeler and Jordan Wilson joining the program today. KJ, you're there, which means you have the honor of the first word of the program here today. We know how monumental a match it will be coming up against Chile. What is the vibe around this group that just seems to be oozing some quiet confidence at the minute?
Yeah, great point. And don't worry, boys, I'll be back no time. I'll be with you on Monday for the match of the week.
Yeah.
Happy Canada Day. Yes, in Halifax.
Love that.
CPL plug. I'll be there with you, boys. But no, look, the mood is that, I think, self-confidence. I think there's there's a lot of belief. Got to spend quite a bit of time with them yesterday, some players, and I suppose when you're not overawed by playing Argentina, no disrespect, but you're not going to be overawed by playing Chile. It's just the way it is. And, I think that, the more I cover this tournament and cover this team, the more I'm quite reflective in the blessings that Canada have been given this route. I know it was never easy to lose that game and having to go to play Trinidad, but this group where you get to play 3 South American teams in this order, I don't think you could have written it better. I don't think you could have put it better to play Argentina first, then Peru. That was a little bit more like a CONCACAF, the villains of Peru kind of match. And now you got Chile, who I think a bit of a blend of both. So look, the vibe is really, really good, really confident. They're spending a lot of time together, but, and I think that's another strength of Canada. And we've seen this for a while now, is that they just get along. There's none of this, difficult times to spend a lot of time together at the moment. They're really happy together. They're excited about Saturday. It's a familiar game, familiar match in a way that they've played here before in Orlando a few times now. Kyle Larin, I talked to him yesterday. He scored the first ever goal inside that stadium when it opened, and when he was playing there in MLS. So all in all, this is a real confident and happy group at the moment.
Gareth, I think many are calling this the biggest match since the World Cup, and for good reason, with what's at stake, an opportunity to punch their ticket to the knockout round of Copa America, which I think years ago might have been a preposterous statement to say. With that in mind, and the pressure that comes with it, confident or not this group, what should the expectations be for Saturday?
That's the key question. They've played in a couple other big games since the World Cup, by the way. A CONCACAF Nations League final, which they lost 2-0. I'd put in terms of eyeballs, just the attention that they got by playing Argentina in the opening match of this tournament was just a massive game for them as well. Expectations, I'm not quite there with this team, with the expectation that they move on from the group, that they do come away with a result in this game. And I wish I was there. But I'm just not sure that I'm there just quite yet. Remember, this is only match number 5 under Jesse Marsch. Like this is a completely new approach. New players have stepped up. I know it's a lot of the familiar faces are within this group, but I think the mentality shifted and it's a little bit different. I think that Marsch has been trying to cram in so much to this group in such a short period of time that you kind of need to roll off vibes a little bit. And that's what I think that they did against Peru. They found a way to win, even though they didn't really play that well. I just think that the style of play, Chile can defend really, really well. They showed it against Argentina, just like Canada did for large stretches in that game. For 75 plus minutes, Chile were just supremely organized, but they're technically better. And I think they'll frustrate Canada, and they'll ask more questions of this Canada side this time around. I hope I'm wrong. I feel like externally, though, and internally, by what KJ is saying, expectations are exceptionally high, and they expect to go on and win it. I'm just not sure if they're ready to take that jump quite yet.
Jordan, do you agree?
I think this is a test that they'll welcome, right? I think positively. I think if you're looking at going into this tournament and the context around this squad was okay, like go do your best to see what you're made of. But I think the way that they've taken their lumps in stride and have developed game after game, I'm just talking about even before this tournament, Netherlands, France, and you can see a team that is really starting to have identity. And that's for the football fan that was watching this squad, was like, this is what you want to see. I think now going into this match against Chile, I think they should have some confidence. I think they should be feeling like to get over the line that they're that close. I understand what Wheels is saying because it's that fast. You asked me 3 weeks ago about this team. I said I just want to see good performances, and everyone bought in. And everyone and their grandmother now is waving a white and red flag with a maple leaf saying we can do it and go all the way. And I love that excitement. I think that's great around the team, but it's also okay to be like, this is still very fast. I think for the players, though, when you look at a situation, you don't get a situation or a tournament like this all the time. So you got to seize the moment to go on to the quarterfinals or whatever it might be and go and do your best. I think they could do it. I think they have to be very pragmatic in the match, but I think that this is their moment. They've been asking for big matches. This is that time to go out and not play for a draw, but maybe if you get one, that's even good enough. So they have to seize this because these opportunities don't come all the time.
Christian, we'll hear from Jesse Marsh next, but your thoughts first on the expectations for the game.
Yeah, both these guys just said the word coming fast, and Jesse Marsh said that to me yesterday. And he said it's a little, in many ways, it's a little unfair that this has come so fast for them, this group. In other words, Jesse Marsh would have loved to have something like this with this group 6 months, 12 months into his tenure, and then really have the ability to go after it, right? So I preface that by saying that, if this does not go their way tomorrow night, what would be the prognosis? And I don't think the prognosis should reach, hyperbole in terms of, a major disappointment again. Do you know what I mean? That's what I mean, unless it goes completely off the rails and it becomes a shellacking, which I don't expect. So I think what Gareth is alluding to, I don't want to speak for him, but I think what we need to understand is just how short of a process this has become. And as Jordan has alluded to as well, is that, whatever they can try and achieve on Saturday, it can't always just strictly be outcome based. Right, there's still things that we're looking here that they've ticked a lot of internal and external boxes already. Like, I'm amazed at how mature they've been in certain elements of areas where it was all kicking off against Peru, and I think the other Canada in the last couple of years, as they continue to find their way, I think 10 or 11 players are in the referee's face in those games. Yet they were aside having their own little chats, and Jesse Marsh has challenged them to become more mature and to be better game managers. And all of those things are important as they move forward, regardless of whether they win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, just really quickly, KJ, just on that. You're right in saying that. The external expectations oftentimes have affected the way that the association makes decisions.
Right.
And I'm not sure that the Canadian fan base have wrapped their head around how difficult this game might be. I think outside the country, people understand what Chile is all about. But in this country, I think if they don't come out with a big performance, I worry about what that reaction is like. Because I'm with you. There's plenty of positive that can be gained over the course of the last month under Jesse Marsh. But it's very quickly in this day and age when you want instant gratification, instant reaction, instant results to then understand what the fallout may be. So I'm hoping for a great result. I'm hoping that they move on. But if they don't, that's why I think it's very important to properly set the expectations for this group heading into this game.
Well, Jesse Marsh certainly understands the expectations and the pressures, and we are sure, that he has his own goals for his team tomorrow. Let's take a listen to some of KJ's conversation with the gaffer.
The guys are positive, and I think the mood has been good. They've been pushing hard, and we've tried to manage them physically because of the heat and the demands and the levels of opponents, but I think they're enjoying this idea of what we're trying to create, and they're committing to it fully. So, yeah, I've been having fun with them. There's a long way to go, but I've been having fun with them.
I do want to get into the weeds of this tournament with you a little bit, but before that, you have said, and you've made no excuses about it, that your eyes are on 2026 and a lot of planning to that. How big is this for you in 2026? The whole tournament thing, playing 3 games, a similar kind of heat, the entire thing. How big is that in terms of a rehearsal?
Yeah, I think it is big. It's really a little bit unfair to the team and the process to have something like this so early in our togetherness. But they really want to achieve. They take playing for the national team very seriously. And they take playing with each other and for each other very seriously. And so, I'm trying to obviously now when you, as things move forward, you have to tilt a little bit to being in the moment and seeing how we can get the most out of the moment, but still have the long-term vision in mind.
Right.
So, I think in the Peru match, like, making the 3 changes at half, I wouldn't normally do that, but I also knew, like, we had to kind of inject some more energy into and mix some things up to see if we could get more out of it, and I think that helped. And then the guys started the second half out in a really good way, and then the red card obviously helped, and we were able to push the game.
You went there, so let's go there. Halftime, the 3 changes. I know you've been asked about this, but I want to ask you about how you come to that conclusion, Jesse, when you're watching a game. It was clear that there was some real suffering, physically, and the really difficult times without the ball.
Yeah.
Talk us through your mindset of where do you go from 1 change to 2 to then 3 for somebody who's hardly made any changes at all.
Yeah.
That was a pretty bold and brave decision.
Yeah, I could see that. First of all, that changes were necessary.
Right.
And then by about the 35th minute, I had my eye on at least 2, and then toward the end, I decided to make 3. Then we changed. At the 28th minute, we had changed to 5 in the back because we were struggling a little bit with some of their big switches, which stabilized things a little bit, but it really just helped us survive. And I kept kind of pushing the guys on the pitch to say, hey, stay strong, like stay focused. Like, yeah, it's not easy right now, but we've got to dig deep. And they did, and I think the leaders, actually, I heard them talking a lot on the pitch and making sure that even though, we were taking some pressure from Peru, that we were stabilized in terms of handling set pieces and not, trying not to give much away, because I still challenge them that both in the Argentina game and the Peru game, a lot of the wounds came self-inflicted from us giving bad balls away or being a little careless in duel situation. So, they did well. And then I could see that we needed to make the changes. I knew I wanted to get Schaff on the pitch. At one point, I was thinking Tejan, and I decided to hold off on him a little bit. Okay. I wanted to get Oso on the pitch with his experience. And then I thought Kamal could help us a little bit with the ball and help us develop a little bit more rhythm in terms of possession. So I think all 3 changes helped, and then we were able to push the game. Schaff, I think, was fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? He brought a lot of energy and.
In both games, no? He must be a pleasure to work with.
Yeah, he is. He takes information really well. He wants to, he wants to work for the team. He really that's his whole mindset. And so I think that's been a real positive. Him and Fonzie have developed a pretty good relationship too. So, but there's a lot of guys that are committing to this at a high level. And I'm just trying to think of how to use them and when to use them. And so, we have flexibility with our team, and I think we're improving and we're growing.
Let's ask Jordan Wilson the next question about decisions, because I'm sure this is really easy for coaches in this position to overthink and overanalyze because there is so much on the line here. But when you boil it down, Jordo, if there was one biggest decision for Jesse Marsch to get right or to make and hope it's right for tomorrow's match, what would it be?
I would say that right winger spot. I know that he's primarily played that 4-2-2-2, but switching Liam Miller from the left side, I didn't think it worked. I think it was a unanimous. Anyone who watches and follows this team just thought that chemistry between Davies and Miller that was dynamite wasn't there. And then having Richie Laryea in, I understand it for that match, and I understand Richie Lariea's quality. But talk about a knockout, must-win, must-perform type of game. And for me, I'm still not off of the Tejan Buchanan train. I don't know how you could be in terms of a player that has so much potential, defensively is sound. And if you're looking at big moments, even in the World Cup, he's the guy that provided an assist to Alphonso Davies, the only goal that kind of scored at a World Cup. Like, he has those moments. I think he just needs Marsch putting his arm around him, saying, you're still that guy, you could still be there. And maybe putting in a shift. Maybe this isn't a game where Tejan goes and assists and scores a goal, but I think just being locked in that position. I could see, though, maybe Marsch being like, Schaffenberg could play there, or Tejan, maybe that's the only decision. But outside of that, I think it's pretty straightforward. The team and the players that have given Canada this platform and success will be playing this game tomorrow.
Gareth?
Need to keep it tight. I go back to the team that started in the first match of this tournament. And for me, the only decision that he needs to make is whether players remain fresh, whether they're good to go, whether they're fatigued or not. And if you need to freshen it up, it's kind of in a like-for-like scenario for me. So it's just monitoring his own players and seeing where they stand in terms of their own fitness and health right now heading into this game.
KJ?
Yeah, physically is obviously a big question mark, right? Have to make sure everyone's okay to go. I think the other thing that will be on his mind is just how Peru switched the play so much and took advantage of wide areas. I think he'd be concerned about what he saw defensively in wide areas. I know that he made that switch to a back five halfway through the first half, and I think it helped, and certainly in the second half. But again, we didn't get to see 11v11 for long enough to know. But I do think there's something there that if they play that back four, and then they play, a version of whatever you want to call it, 4-4-2, 4-2-2-2. If you ask Miller and Buchanan to play that role the way they did against Argentina, what Argentina didn't do was really expose the flanks, which Peru showed us a little bit, and Chile will have noticed that. So what does Canada do to take advantage of that? And everyone would think about, okay, what they do with the ball, but I mean without the ball. And is there an element that by playing a back five that you can actually get the best out of Alphonso Davies and subsequently Alistair Johnson, who can often tuck in and make up an extra midfield number and allow Eustachio and Kone to play as true eights? So there's a lot of questions there, but it'd be interesting to see it. What he ultimately does with his formation.
A lot of questions for Jesse Marsh, but I think one that everyone in the nation and everyone watching this team is confident in is the goalkeeping position. And while Maxime Crépeau is no longer wearing number 22, he is definitely shining for this Canadian men's national team. He is another player that Christian Jack spoke with on match day -2. Let's listen to this interview next.
I know that playing quality teams like these, like South American teams, like in the past, I believe previously we only played Uruguay in the last 2-3 years of South American football, and so it's a style of play that they have so much passion. They throw a lot of bodies forward. They invest a lot in their attacks, and so as a goalkeeper, actions are coming, especially when you play Argentina and you play Peru, Chile next. There's moments in the game that we might bend but not break, and we use that terminology in the last game where we had some moments that we were deep in our half, but there's moments that when we win the ball we breathe a lot, and so those moments that I'm called upon of, well, I'm just staying ready and being mentally prepared for these moments.
It must feel good though, Max, no? Because obviously you and I have had many conversations over the years. Ultimately, there can only be one goalkeeper on the pitch, no matter how good you've been, and you've kind of waited for these moments. No, I mean, Gold Cup 2021, it became your net. You had that window of 3 games 4, 5, and 6 for World Cup qualifiers without Milan, and that became your net. But it hasn't really been a long process in terms of having that consistency. So it must feel good to be able to do this in the big stage.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, I had my glimpse here and there, and having this moment, the last 3 games of the team, and being together for now a month, I'm enjoying my football as well, because as we've talked in the past too, like having that injury, missing on the World Cup, being on the side. International football, you don't know when it's coming again. That right. It comes and goes. You don't know when's the next time you're gonna get the call, and so. There's the fact of enjoying the football, getting the result for the country, but mostly in the back of my mind, I'm having fun and I'm enjoying my football.
Well, I am consistently surprised by the number of Canadian men's national team players that are not only fantastic athletes, but are so incredibly well-spoken. And KJ, I'm sure the Maxime Crépeau, soft-spoken, glasses-wearing, insightful keeper is always a pleasure to talk to. And from those conversations and just from what you've seen of him on the pitch especially, has he been the biggest surprise or the biggest revelation for Canada at this tournament? Or would you go in a slightly different direction through 2 matches?
No, I'll go with Max, because I think that, we're coming into this tournament before Atlanta unsure of who was playing in net. Dane Sinclair had got the 1 goal against Netherlands, and then Crépeau got the other net against the French, and Crépeau owned that net, and Dane Sinclair led in 4, which was obviously not really his fault, but there was a real battle there, and both of those have really competed hard and helped each other, and there's a good relationship there. But to see Crépeau come out of that Argentina game as being a superstar that he is, I was absolutely delighted for him. And more importantly, his teammates were really pleased for him. And you alluded to it, you know, the soft-spoken man with the glasses, he almost puts on the cape and then puts on his number 16 and goes out there, and he's ruthless, right? He reads the game really well. But this is a man, I think, that has always, you know, backed himself when others haven't. By the way, another player that the Canadian soccer system failed in terms of allowing him to go to MLS teams in the US, and we've got a few of them, by the way, that we weren't able to keep in Canada. Backed himself, found out how to win with his national team and his club, and has taken that winning mentality into Canadian football and within this national team as well. So just a brilliant guy, and has had a brilliant tournament so far.
Jordan.
Crepeau is a feel-good story, without question. You can't deny that. My wife, who hardly watches football, is a huge fan just because of the way he's been playing the past couple of games.
Canadians love their goalies, mate.
They love their goalies, man. I'm like, and he's just a warm little teddy bear. But the defender in me, the spine of the team, and just the feel-good story that Derek Cornelius has brought. This is a guy in a calendar year. He's outside of 2019. He's never played more than 4 matches for the year. He's a squad player. He's a guy that comes in maybe if someone's injured. He's the replacement, or has been a replacement, for Kamal Miller. Now, for me, I do not go past many players on this team, and we have some stars, without mentioning Derek Cornelius. He needed someone to come in to say, look, you have the quality, you're left-footed, and at left-footed center back, you're a rare gem. You're breed just the way like you look and see the game. He has the passing ability, but this system has fit him to a T. You press, you have to deal with your man 1v1. You could see him just being a leader, and he's not the most vocal or boisterous guy, but he leads by example. And Marsh and the system has given him room to just flourish and flap his wings, and it's great to see. He's 26. He's at that ripe age for a defender. You could see that going into 2026 World Cup, he'll be a leader. He could be a mainstay. So for me, Derek Cornelius, and especially with a team, when you look at Canada, that would probably be the weakest point of looking at center backs, who's breaking through. This is always a conversation. Wish I had a couple inches on me and years younger, and I'd be like, oh, throw me in there. Now I can't say that. Derek Cornelius, Bombito, the way these guys are playing, it's just a joy to watch.
That's the thing. I mean, goalkeepers, it's a fine story. Save the ball. I get it. Outfield players. Let's go center backs. I'm with you. And when the squad was named, even into the friendlies, you're like, that's center back position. Question mark.
Yes.
Just massive question marks. It's a combination of Bombito and Cornelius that would be the biggest pleasant surprise. Every game, they've stepped up and they haven't looked out of place. We said, how are you going to deal with Simons and Depay? How are you going to deal with Mbappe and this French, attacking unit? How are you going to deal with Messi and Alvarez? Peru, I'll skip over because they stunk. But now Chile, it's like Vargas, Davia, Sanchez. There's some top players. And I have confidence that these two players, the way they play, the way they complement one another, the way that they mix just in terms of their athleticism, their intelligence, and the way that they haven't backed down, I have confidence in these two young players. And that's the best story for me in this Canadian side, is that now some of those question marks about how you move on from Vittoria and others, what that looks like going forward, I think now we know what it's going to look like here over the next few years.
Well, as we head to the third and final group stage matches in this tournament, we think about CONCACAF and how it hasn't been the best 24 to 48 hours for some of our southern neighbors in the region. Depends. That's true, Gareth. It depends on your optics on the situation. We have Mexico going down to Venezuela, and then yesterday a shock 2-1 win for Panama over the United States of America. Timothy Weah sent off in the 18th minute. And if the temperature was hot, it's probably a hot tub now for both Craig Berhalter and across the pond, Gareth Southgate, for various reasons in terms of unhappy supporters and concerned supporters in their respective tournaments. Yes, that's the difference, is that the English did win their group. What are the ramifications if this does not go well, KJ? They don't need to beat the Uruguayans, but it would certainly make their path a little bit easier and a little bit less math if they were to get, say, a draw, depending on the other result. But it must be tense times right now in the country you're currently sitting in.
Yeah, it's pretty tense. I saw the game yesterday. We were in a restaurant and bar and watching it, and there's a lot of people talking about it. And I'll just say this, like, first of all, that's wonderful. Like, I came to this continent almost 25 years ago, and I've spent a lot of time living and spending a lot of time in this wonderful country. And you know, getting anyone to talk about this sport for the longest time was very hard, you know. And you know, to come down here and spend time in Atlanta and now in Florida and to see that, you know, flags people watching the Euros and watching Copa America, it's clear that this country is falling in love with this sport, and that's great. And you know, we don't have to get lost on talking about North American sports all the time, which get a lot of publicity as well. But they did not take this well. You know, people in the bar that we lost to who, you know, talks of a canal and different things like that. And I just like wanted to tell them, hold on, like, Panama's a good team. You know, this is what's got lost in this, but no one wants to hear that here in the U.S. The U.S. are used to winning things. They're not used to losing, regardless of being in an invited competition. So I know we're short on time. I'll keep it sweet, but ultimately, don't sleep on Panama, and the U.S. have got a lot of work to do, and it's not going down very well here.
Wheels, I know you rate Panama as well.
I do. They've been coming for years. They're a country that's on the ascendancy, which is good news for everyone within CONCACAF, in fairness. But let's focus on the U.S. here. And Berhalter now, since he's come in for the second foray with the national team, he's 7-5-1. I mean, I think they've lived off these Nations League wins and the fact that Mexico hasn't been very good. And these wins over Mexico, I think, have inflated just the perception of where they're at right now. But I think the overall perception of American fans is they're not having Berhalter right now. The way that things played out, which saw him go away, then they decided to bring him back in. The standards have risen. Like, again, this is about expectations. They expect this U.S. team with players playing all over the globe with reputations now. U.S. soccer is a big business. These players are getting paid more than anyone else to represent their national team. And that whole conversation bothers me to begin with, but it's part of the conversation here. And Berhalter needs to find a way. I rate him as a manager. Is he getting the most out of this group? Absolutely not. The pressure is on this team heading into a home World Cup, just like it is for Canada, just like it is for Mexico. And the U.S., based upon talent and the players in the team, should be faring much better than this, no matter if they're playing a good Panama side or not.
And the stoppage time for you, Jordan Wilson.
Will said it best, but this is a result-based industry, especially when you're looking at the Americans and how they go about their sports. You can't look at this football team and not make it out of the group in Copa America and Berhalter feel uncomfortable and solid.
They're hosting.
They're hosting. Like, it is nuts. So you hope if you're American, if you're a fan watching this team, that they can get the act together and maybe get a draw and things go their way. But if they're out of the tournament, that's bye-bye to Berhalter for sure.
A few big surprises in Group C. Group D action this evening. It is Colombia and Costa Rica from 3 p.m. Pacific time. Paraguay and Brazil from 10 p.m. Atlantic.
Neymar.
I've always loved Christian Jack, and now I know that we have one more thing in common, because I too came to this continent around 25 years ago, though it was my first time on any continent around that time. KJ, thanks for your work as always. Great interviews. You can find extended.
What is it with all these people making me feel old right now? Jacob Schaffelberg sat down yesterday. I'm watching you as a kid. I'm like,
fine wine.
Watching you as a kid.
Fine wine. This has been Vamos, presented by Degree. We're back tomorrow to preview Canada and Chile. So long, everyone.